Hello, welcome. My name is Eric Usher. I'm the head of the UN Environment Program's Finance Initiative, which we call UNEP-FI for short. UNEP-FI has been around for quite a long time, actually. It was started in 1992, so it's one of the oldest partnerships between the UN and the private sector. It's also one of the first global initiatives focused on the concept of sustainable finance. Now, sustainable finance is about banks, investors, insurance companies taking into account sustainability concerns into their business decisions. It's when we started in 1992, it was definitely a bit of a niche topic, as we can say. The first question, which was typically raised was, what do financial institutions have to do with sustainable development? After all, they don't cut down trees. Now, if we fast forward 30 years to today, I think it is widely understood by most financiers globally that their biggest impact to sustainable development is created through their lending, their investing and insurance services. So, for example, banks can choose to keep on lending to clients who cut down trees. Alternatively, banks can support clients to change their business models so that they no longer need to create this negative impact. So the actions and policies of a bank can really lead to very different outcomes for the environment. So it's in this video, I have the pleasure of interviewing two leading figures in Thailand within the sustainable finance agenda. And let me introduce my guests. I have Dr. Srikanya and Ms. Katia. Now, Dr. Srikanya Yathip is the Secretary General of the Government Pension Fund of Thailand. And the Government Pension Fund, or GPF for short, is one of the largest institutional investors in Thailand. GPF is the first and so far the only investor signatory to the UN Principles for Responsible Investment within Thailand. Now let me introduce my second speaker, which is Ms. Katia Intravichai. Ms. Katia is the Chief Executive Officer of Kasikorn Bank, or K-Bank. It's one of the top commercial banks in Thailand, and K-Bank was the first signatory to the UN Principles for Responsible Banking in the country. So welcome, Dr. Srikanya and Ms. Katia. Really a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for taking the time in your busy schedules for this important discussion. To kick off the discussion, and by way of self-introduction, could I ask you both to tell me, why do you believe sustainable finance is a relevant topic for your organizations today? Dr. Srikanya?
So thank you very much, Eric, for having me for this very important conversation. So to your question, why GPF thinks sustainable finance is important to us. I think back to the fundamental, we believe that sustainable finance can have a transformative effect on society, and that can rebuild our world where environment and society don't need protecting as they are great from the core. That's how we see it. The issue here is being a pension fund institution investor, you may call it, we have a privilege to select what and where to invest. And that gives us the opportunity to have an investment mandate that governs our managers and also investing entities to align their corporate behavior with broader objective of society, at the same time generating better long-term financial returns. Or you may call it, people often call it doing well by doing good. On our belief is in serving the interests of our pension members. It is not necessary at odds with the imperative profit. It is possible to have it both ways. That's how we see it. Taking the current situation into consideration in particular, under the extreme pressure of the COVID-19, we understand even more that if we want to protect our bottom line, we need to protect others as well. We see that social responsibility and sustainable profit can go hands in hand, in such a way that the first, which means social responsibility, need to deliver the second, or the sustainable profit. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you very much, and a very, I think, powerful introduction in terms of framing or positioning on the issue. Ms. Katia, what about from the banking perspective? What does this mean for K-Bank?
Yeah, thank you, Eric, and thanks to UNEP-FI for inviting K-Bank today. K-Bank has been in operation for more than 76 years and going strong. Of course, in general, company not only needs to make profit to satisfy shareholders every year, but also we want to create sustainable profit in the long term. As a result, so we must think and we must care about all the stakeholders, not only for shareholders, customer, employee, supplier, and the community. Sometimes we have to trade off between short-term pain and a long-term gain. And to address why sustainable development is so important for financial institutions, I would say in banking, we need 2 licenses to run the business. The first one is the banking license, which is regulatory license that allow us to legally operate business. The other one is a social license, which allow us to operate in the community. To earn trust from the community is not only about environmental, but also about the supporting people and the support the community that we live in. Like financial inclusion, financial aids during COVID-19 crisis. If the community could not survive, we would not survive as well. A survey from College of Management, Mahidol University, found that 74% of those surveyed don't want to support the product that is not environmental friendly, and 37% are willing to pay more for the green product. These statistics show that our society is moving towards that trend, the sustainability trend. The community has changed, customer has changed. So if we want to stay relevant, this is a trend that we cannot ignore. By answering our customer needs, we can do good and at the same time do well.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I think you've both framed very powerfully doing good through doing well by paying attention more and more to this wider stakeholder view and the reality that if we're not taking care of the views of our customers, of our employees, of our investors, of our dialogue with governments, we run the risk potentially of creating impacts that potentially are on the environment today, but then come back onto our balance sheet tomorrow. So let's talk, and Dr. Chikana, you have referred to the very difficult current context as we labor through and hopefully are starting to come out of the COVID-19 crisis. There are 2 camps today, it seems, that, you know, one group of positions, both coming from governments, from business, financial institutions, are saying that the recovery from COVID crisis is the priority and that sustainability issues should be put on hold. Another camp is saying, well, no, rather, because we need to build back from COVID, this is the opportunity actually to be investing sustainably. And one of the biggest sustainability issues today certainly is the global climate crisis and the shift towards shifting our economies to a net zero carbon emission economy. So the difference between the 2 strategies is rather stark. And I would like to then put my next question to the 2 of you to ask, what do you think about the rise in net zero commitments around the world? How do you believe Thailand is positioned or needs to position, particularly the business sector, in looking to this impending, but it might happen at different speeds, decarbonization? What are your institution's responses to this challenge? Dr. Srikana, can I start with you?
Yes, thank you, Eric. So I think for the net zero movement is something every country in the world is working towards that. For Thailand, what I heard is our country is developing like a national master plan on that, and with the goal of achieving zero net carbon emission into reality. What I heard is the government plan to present the national master plan or the zero net carbon emission to the 26th session of the UN Climate Change Conference, which is scheduled to take place in Glasgow, Scotland, I think in November this year. So that's how you can see that this is how Thailand is taking the issue very seriously. I have read some draft report on the plan, and I have seen that the plan would affect a lot of business. Since the plan proposed that in changing its plan to change Thailand for a mix in power generation to low carbon. So I think in the very near future, we would support a lot of electrical vehicle industry, the industry that support managing waste throughout the models of bio, circular economy, and that would be a lot of changing in Thailand economy in such a way. We would see a lot of goods and products made from low carbon processes. And I expect to see a lot of smart projects on agricultural farms and metropolitan areas. That would be also possibility for carbon capture storage system. That's how I can paint you a big picture of how Thailand taking the issue seriously. To your second question, how government pension fund respond to the net zero commitment. I like to say that that is pretty much in line with our announcement on our vision on investment. We have announced to the public that we want to be the leader in ESG investing and initiative in Thailand a few years back. And that means that we have publicly announced our commitment that we want to be a truly responsible investor. In order to make our claim come true, what we are doing right now is we are revisiting our strategic asset allocation. That would be in response to both the investment paradigm shift and also the ambition of to be a leader, as I mentioned. Amongst other things that we are working with our consultant in our new portfolio is ongoing transition from making a commitment, not just a say, to delivering the impact. What we are looking for, what we tell our consultant, we are looking for a blueprint for action to tackle the climate crisis. We also want to join the net zero race. That's how we talk to our consultant, that's how we want to see in our new portfolio. Internally, in terms of preparing ourselves for that, we are studying a lot of net zero investment framework. And we think we come across this very good framework. I'd like to share it with you as well. There's a framework developed by the Institutional Investor Group on climate change. The group has almost like, if I remember correctly, 300 members, mainly pension fund manager and asset manager. And those group of people develop the framework together. And within 16 countries in Europe and some countries in Asia. And our investment team are working on that framework so that we can have a clear guiding principle and how we can frame that framework into our existing framework and how we can apply the basic switch start from broad range and into a true commitment to achieve net zero emission and define strategy to measure the alignment and transition portfolio. So I would like to conclude that Thailand is working very hard on that. And as an investor, we are also working very hard on that. But we are not an expert in net zero, So what we are trying to do is we try to develop our investment portfolio that align to that and have a key vision aiming for that. And by the end of this year, I believe that we can have that portfolio and that guiding principle in place. And we would see a more clear and an action plan from GPF from next year. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Shikanya. And I think as you pointed out, this is a very holistic challenge. And I think for any financial organization, historically, we think of the energy sector when we think of decarbonization, but the reality here, and I think as you pointed out, is almost every industry that you deal with will be in some sense of change, whether it's energy, whether it's building, construction, steel and cement, certainly transport, even the food system, that we are seeing changes that are already happening. Industries are already being upended. We have the second wealthiest person in the world today is an electric vehicle entrepreneur. His company is worth more than almost the rest of auto manufacturers combined, the conventional technologies, and this is an upstart. And we're seeing similar signals happening in many other industries. So I think from the investors, the financiers' perspective, understanding the impact on the industries you are working with and what positioning you need to take to not pose risks to your portfolio, but also be part of these opportunities is certainly key. Could I come to Ms. Katya in terms of the positioning from a major bank in Thailand? Is it a similar approach? How do you see the things going forward?
Okay, moving towards net zero carbon is important, and we can see we saw some nations and some organizations committed to the net zero emission target in the next 20 to 30 years. That's very good, and that's meaning that everyone knows that it is important, and everyone knows that it would take time and a lot of effort for the whole ecosystem to make a net zero futures. It requires legislation support, financial support, standard setting in each industry and across the value chain. We need to act in synchronized manner. K-Bank is willing to participate in the net zero carbon network and aims towards the sustainability growth. Playing a role of a financial service provider for the business throughout the country, we set policy that aim to help customers to reimagine a new way to do business through a more sustainable lens. For example, we have ESG screening tools for our credit underwriting processes and mechanism, a place to avoid working with a business that harm the environment or violate human rights. 100% of our suppliers must process through the ESG risk assessment. 100% as of now of the project finance and the new commercial loans since the fourth quarter of last year were being processed through the ESG assessment framework. It was accounted about 119 billion baht, but that's still only 9% of our commercial loan portfolio. So we have policy in place. We have good intention to make it happen. We achieve some target. We need to speed up our execution. So other than do good and do well, as I mentioned earlier, we need to do more. So that's our position. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and I think you've positioned it well, which is to say you've gotten started in a very serious way, but there is a lot more to do, and I think that's an important reflection that we all need to be making. And I think in next month in July, you are jointly hosting a high-level event on sustainable finance for Thai banks and investors, and you've convinced the Minister of Finance will be co-hosting the event, and we in the UN are honored to be supporting it as well. First of all, we're very grateful. Will be an event for you to call out to your peers to take up the two UN principles on sustainable finance, the principles of responsible investment and the principles for responsible banking. We hope that will be very impactful, I think, in terms of raising awareness across the industry. But could I ask, what's in it for you? Why would you like to see the wider financial community integrate more effectively sustainability considerations? Can I start with you, Ms. Katia?
Okay, for K-Bank, as I mentioned earlier, that we have put a lot of effort in the sustainable development. We know that are still much more that we can do. Policy already set up. Going forward, we need to do more on the execution part, address more key drivers, and involve more related parties. But still, this is not enough. We need more financial institutions in Thailand collaborating on sustainability. More resources must be committed to drive the sustainability agenda and engage with stakeholders at all levels. In Thai banking industry, Bank of Thailand and Thai Banker Association are collaborating to work on the taxonomy in parts of green finance definition. and a project in the green finance category, and establish responsible lending practices as part of sustainable business operation. But still, all financial institutions need to do more and more. But we have to do it together. And not only financial institutions, more parties like business, meaning our customer, regulator, consumer who buy the product must be engaged.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And let me come to Dr. Shikana for the last word. You sit we say at the top of the financing chain. Why for you a more sustainable financial system is so important?
You know what? I just like to take what Ms. Katia just said. I think I like what she said. You said doing good by doing well and doing more. I think that concludes everything. We cannot just do good and do well and then stop. We have to do more. And to do more is we do it together. We cannot do it alone. That's how I like what you said. Thank you very much. I think that's make everything pretty clear on that notion. And getting back to your question, what is it in it for us, for government pension fund in taking part or participate in this kind of things? On a level as an investor, we consider that any factor at all that would affect the sustainable investment are risks. Those are the investment risks. And those risks can have a negative headline, and that would destroy not just the company, but also us as an investor. And that would mean that whatever we invest just go down to zero. And we don't want that to happen. That's a business point of view. So, and also as a corporate citizen, I think we have a responsibility towards the society. We can act, we can say, our voice can do a concern to other people, and that can transform our world up to the level of being sustainable. As I said earlier, that if our world becomes sustainable from the core, then you don't need to protect the world anymore, and that we have to do it together. And to respond to your notion regarding why would we like to see more financial institutions in Thailand elevate to this sustainability effort? As I said, that I like what Ms. Katia said, doing more. But I would like to add a little flavor to that. I think that if we do it together, our collective effort would speak louder. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. And that is where the sky is only the limit. And I just remember once I heard what Mother Teresa just said. She said, which is, I think, is inspired me, and it's a kind of conclude what we are trying to do right now. She said, none of us, including me, ever do great things. But if we can all do small things with great love, like our passion right now, to do something good for the society. And that means together we can do something wonderful. And I think that's why we organize this kind of thing together, try to make it happen in Thailand. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I think this forward ambition from your organizations and also as leaders in your industry is very important for your industry. And it's also very important for other stakeholders, including government, to understand, because I think the signal of leaning in on the part of the finance industry is showing that there's risks to be addressed and there's opportunities to be seen in terms of this new economy, this new transition to low carbon, to climate resilience. It is about future economic growth. It's about future prosperity, and having your two organizations and your leadership helping drive the financial sector in Thailand in that direction towards those opportunities is really key. And for that, I really like to thank you very much, appreciate the engagement, and looking forward to working together in future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.